Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer. I'm podcasting from Maludumim in Israel. As we speak, much is happening both right here in Israel and around the world. It is sometimes difficult to believe that so much could be happening at once, but such is the fate of those who are condemned to live in interesting times. We're living on the cusp of an uncertain future, and to pretend that everything will somehow emerge exactly as we hope or expect is the epitome of grasping at straws. As we head into this Rosh HaShana, we are all probably quite apprehensive, to say the least. Israel is heading into a highly controversial and highly disliked lockdown because of the unmitigated coronavirus pandemic. Much of the rest of the world still suffers from the same pandemic that seems to be unstoppable, barring some miracle vaccine or until it reaches its natural end through herd immunity or something else. Much of the Western United States is ravaged by fires, the worst in its history. Much of the rest is torn apart by riots and political unrest. China and India seem to be on the verge of a major war. Economic instability and chronic problems plague much of the world. Meanwhile, Israel is entering into an almost biblical peace with some of its most implacable foes of the past and looks forward to a much brighter future in the region. Is all this messianic, or is it apocalyptic? Or is it just another year gone by? We don't know. But when there is so much we don't know, perhaps the best thing is to focus on what we do know, or at least have some idea of what to expect. We know that the Jewish year 5780 is coming to an end, and the year 5781 is about to begin. We know that we are alive and have families and friends and societies and beliefs. We know that our lives matter, at least to ourselves and a few others, and that this simple fact is what keeps us keeping on in the face of all the uncertainty in the world. With this foundation, we can handle anything the world throws at us. There is no Parsha this week. This is what happens when a biblical holiday falls on the Shabbat. The regular Torah reading is superseded by something relevant in the Torah for the holiday at hand. In this case, it happens that there is really very little in the Torah that is all that relevant for Rosh HaShana. The words Rosh HaShana never come up in the 5 books of Moses. All we find is a couple of short and somewhat nondescript verses referring to something on the first day of the 7th month. Even the blowing of the shofar, that classical practice always associated with Rosh Hashanah, is not really explicitly mentioned in those couple of verses. The very fact that the day is listed as the first of the 7th month makes almost anyone wonder how this could be the first day of the new year. Not only that, but there is not 1, but 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. How did that ever happen? Such is the nature of Judaism. The 7th month became the first month. A vague word became an explicit commandment to blow the shofar, and the first day became the first and second days. As far as the reading from the Torah is concerned, the sections for the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are unquestionably pretty dramatic. While neither appears to have anything to do with Rosh Hashanah, Judaism has managed to intricately connect both with it. They are consecutive sections from about 1/3 of the way through the book of Genesis. The first deals with the birth of Isaac, the son and spiritual heir of Abraham. The second deals with the astounding and counterintuitive story of the so-called binding of Isaac, in which God commanded Abraham to take his son and slaughter him as an offering. As unbelievable as that all sounds, Abraham went through with the attempt, but was stopped by an angel at the last instant, thus averting a potential incident of human sacrifice by the founder of monotheism. As tempting as it is to get into either of those electrifying events, we are going to leave them for another time and focus on something else entirely. In that first section, following the birth of Isaac, Sarah, Abraham's wife, demands of Abraham that he drive off his concubine, whose name was Hagar, and Yishmael, her son, through Abraham. While all this sounds like family and tribal intrigue in the harsh reality of the nomadic desert in biblical times, for Judaism, it would have far-reaching consequences. This event represented the final fateful separation between Isaac and Yishmael, the ancestors of the Jews and the Arabs, and to some degree of Judaism and Islam. The way Hagar was driven out and the manner in which she survived in the desert was inevitably written into the destiny of these two cultures and peoples. While this is no longer fashionable today, for countless centuries, this act was looked upon as writing the fates of those two historic nations, enemies at times and partners at times. It is not hard to imagine why such a dramatic event, recorded as it is in the Bible, should have had ramifications that reverberate until today. It paralyzed the idea of how a relatively large molecule known as a gene could have a fatalistic effect on the future life of the person who carries it within their cells. Hagar, after being driven out of the nomadic encampment, got lost while wandering in the desert around what is now the Israeli city of Beersheba. She was then confronted by that most dreaded fate of those in this situation. She ran out of water. Both she and her son were at major risk of dying of thirst. It was Yishmael who suffered first from this form of desert torture. Hagar, desperate for water, set him down under a bush and watched him from a distance, saying, quote, "Let me not see the death of the boy." She then wept. The Torah then goes fully biblical. God heard, quote, "God heard the voice of the boy. An angel of God called to Hagar from the heavens and said to her, 'What is with you, Hagar? Do not fear, for God has heard the voice of the boy as he is there. Arise and lift up the boy and support his hand, for I will make him into a great nation.' God then opened up Hagar's eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she walked and filled up the skin with water and gave him some to drink." This dramatic story can easily go almost unnoticed in between the birth of Isaac and the close call of his near sacrifice. But there it is, read of all times on the first day of Rosh HaShana. Many wonder why this particular story was chosen. The standard answer is that it's simply the next event after the birth of Isaac, who is traditionally believed to have been conceived on Rosh HaShana. But this really begs the question. Nothing is happenstance in Judaism, and certainly not something read from the Torah on this solemn day. There must be some great significance in this story for those who hear it year after year. What is it? Well, there are several possible answers to this question. We shall zero in on a very simple one. It is in that puzzling line about God opening up Hagar's eyes, and then she sees a well somewhere, which apparently was there all along. Why couldn't she see this well before God opened up her eyes? Did the well just emerge out of the earth right at that moment? There is no indication that this was the case. The well was always there, but Hagar couldn't see it until God opened her eyes. But why weren't her eyes open already? Why did she need God to open them? What does all this mean? There's a fascinating little rabbinic take on all this. In a fairly ancient teaching called a midrash, there is a statement that, quote, "Everyone has the status of being blind until the Holy One opens their eyes." This apparently is how the midrashic teaching sees what happened to Hagar. Now, what does that mean? It can be confidently assumed that they didn't believe everyone is really blind until God somehow cures them. They knew that this was not actually the case at all. What they meant, perhaps, was that our ability to see anything in front of us is itself the result of a sort of divine supervision. In the case of Hagar, her inability to see the well was not because she was temporarily blinded to see anything. She was seeing other things like her son, the bush, and whatever else might have been in the area, except for the well. That, for reasons not indicated in either the Bible or the Midrash, was kept hidden from her. It was only when God opened her eyes that her blindness of this well was removed and she was able to see it. This is absolutely mind-blowing. Who would have ever believed that something we take as much for granted as our eyesight could actually be working in a selective manner, and that we cannot see one thing while we could see others, even though both are equally visible to us? But this is precisely what is being suggested in this teaching. In fact, it is making the bigger claim that really nothing we see should be taken for granted, but it is all in the form of a kind of divine gift from God. We are blind to everything unless God somehow lets us see. This gift is so normal and so expected that we do take it for granted and do not take it for the gift that it is. In the case of Hagar, the gift of seeing the well was only given when she spoke with the angel and understood what was to be the fate of her son. Then and only then was she deemed ready and deserving of seeing the well, which would prove to be their salvation. Perhaps this could serve as an example for other things in life that we struggle to see or understand. We may not really get what is going on, why it is happening, and how it will turn out until our eyes, so to speak, are opened. In a sense, we finally do understand. It is not difficult to understand how we have the status of a kind of mental blindness concerning any given thing in our lives. We are oblivious to what perhaps should be obvious. We are blind to what is right before our eyes. This is such a common occurrence that we take it for granted and assume it to be some quirk of the way the mind works. But it could very well be that this is part of the mysterious way that God interacts with us in the course of our lives. As we continue along this maze into which we have been thrust, it might be a good idea to recognize that this phenomenon can work on a global scale. Maybe the entire world, or at least a good portion of it, can enter into a period of selective blindness in which we simply don't know where things are heading and really don't have a clue as to which way to turn. We ourselves might be blind to solutions and to pathways that lie right in front of our eyes. This is part of the way things are and the way that they have to be. Perhaps this is an appropriate ending message for this coming very unusual Rosh HaShana. To learn to live with this temporary blindness and to be able to wait for that moment of clarity when our eyes are finally opened. It will happen. We just don't know when. Shabbat Shalom and Shana Tova. Have a good and blessed year.